Well, hi and welcome to Chapter 8. We're going to talk about transparency and shadowing. So, first thing it gets into is we've got this nice little graphic here, and how would we basically make it transparent? Well, it talks about GIFs, and the thing about GIFs, again, GIFs, as we talked about in the last section, the last chapter, I believe was Chapter 6, talked about GIFs are great for pictures that don't have many colors. So this would be a great graphic to make into a GIF. So what we can do is we can actually bring that into Pixlr, and there we see it. Now here's the thing is I want to get rid of this background and make it transparent. So what I do is I click on my lasso tool and I make sure I click up here on my polygon so that I can just grab the edge. So I'm going to grab this very top part. I'm just going to come down here and just slowly but surely come around this curve, clicking every now and then to set an anchor point. So I got it selected, and I come up here and I do an edit, copy, and in Pixlr I click edit, new image, and in here I'm going to say create a new image from the clipboard and let's make it transparent. Make sure the background is transparent and the foreground is not. I click OK, and now what we'll see is I now have this picture, and this checkered board means that there's nothing back there. It's truly transparent. So if I were to save this, I click Save. Now the one thing about Pixlr is we do not have GIF as an option. All we have is PNG. So if I click PNG, you'll notice I get to keep my background. So I go ahead and select OK, save it to my desktop in this case, and now when I open that up, basically I have a true transparent item that the background is truly transparent. So if I were to put this on a website, the background would come all the way up to the edge of that picture, as opposed to this one it would not. We would actually see that background image there. So that's kind of a nice way to make sure an image is transparent. If I truly needed a GIF, I could actually open up Microsoft Paint, Windows System, and then I'm sorry, Windows Accessories and Paint. And I could actually open that up and paint. And then basically save it as a GIF. Any transparency we lost if you save this picture? Do you want to continue? Why can't I save my transparency? Anyways, apparently we lose the background, and we'd have to go back through and cut that all out if we saved it as a GIF. But so again, Photoshop. Now you can download Photoshop for a 30-day trial period, but all you get is 30 days. So if you want to basically go full-blown and download Photoshop to kind of go through some of these, you can. But so kind of getting back to the book, so that's kind of what this is talking about here, is basically making the background images. Now if you'll notice these little nuts right here, I believe, yeah, it looks as though they made those transparent as well, and even these little dots and even the words. Okay, so we would have to actually go in and select those items as well to make them transparent. if we wanted to truly do that. So what we'd have to do is we'd have to use our magic wand right here and click on that letter. Oh. Wow. Is it not? Okay. And you just basically select all that. I use the shift key every time I hit the magic wand. I hit the delete key and that removes all of that text. And so if I clicked here, does that do it? And then hold down the shift key. Again, hit the delete key. That's now transparent. Click there. And now that is transparent as well. And I could do the same thing, each one of those little dots, and even this item right here. So again, Pixlr's not as robust as Photoshop, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper. So, which is what I like. Again, hit the delete key, and we now truly have that is now all transparent except for the little dots. But whoop. Anyways, so again, they go into more Photoshop stuff here, so we're not going to really worry about that. So now we talk about matting. So we have this picture, Chris Schmidt, and again, this is all in the code file that you have included for this particular chapter. So that the image is square, rectangular, it's not quite as easy. So what we want to do is we want to make it into a circle. And so it says image overlaps two fields. So we got basically this starry field back here. We've got this guy in a helmet, and we got some text. And so what we want to do is we want to make it into a nice circle. So if we do that, what will happen is we will get this white edge on the picture, and we would have to go in and clean that up. Now, the nice thing is Photoshop, you can actually say clean it up by using this some kind of a web edging tool, but in Pixlr we could have to go in and actually clean up that edge manually. Again, I like Pixlr because it's free. And then when we do that, we notice the nice edge looks a lot better. So, and this is basically what it looks like now. So then they talk about the different colors of PNG, PNG 8, PNG 16, PNG 24, so on and so forth. So we use PNG 24, and we basically make the so that it works. So let's take a look at the actual code here. So let me go to chapter 8, and if we look at this first one, we basically have this. So again, we've got this nice sharp edge here. But here's the thing, is if I go back and look at the picture's actually square. So we're actually using CSS to basically get past that. And here's the star field that's down here at the bottom. And again, it's not very tall. So let's take a look at what this is doing. So open it within Notepad. So up here in our style section, we do have this box size listing. We've got, and we're actually importing in, looks like some kind of a font. We've got basically our web box kit sizing and border box. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details there. It's more one of these things where we kind of copy and paste and reuse. We got our height. So we're making sure the height of our HTML is 100%. And I'll talk about that here in just a second. So we talk about our body background. We say that we're going to have that nebula image as our background image. Now, if that's all I had, the entire image would be background of that. But I want to background the position at 50%, 100%. What that means is 50% high, 100% wide. And we want it to repeat, no repeat, and we want the background size to be 200% and 50%. So we want to make sure that it really covers the page. So we're going beyond 100%, and it's, again, 50% tall. We got a figure here where we basically then, it's 400, and then we tell it what the margin is, and the position is absolute. We can make it fixed, absolute, and relative. We got top 50%, but left 50%. Margin is negative 200. So we're basically telling exactly where we want this picture to be on the page. And we want to float left. And again, this guy up here, this WebKit box sizing, is actually making it into a circle. It's actually cutting the parts off of that circle. So we've got our fig caption. So anyways, so when it's all said and done, we've got our image. So this guy right here, this image, tells it where the image needs to float. And then this guy up here is telling it how we're going to utilize the border box. So that border box is coming in and kind of like sitting over the top of that picture and cutting off the outer edge. We've got our caption, we got strong, and again, that's all for the text. Okay. So when we run it, it basically puts this guy right in the center of the page. Again, our nebulous picture is taken at 50%. We're actually making it bigger because we're expanding it out 50%. If I didn't do that, that thing would actually be down in here. It'd be about this tall if it's just a regular picture. And this guy is sitting right here. And our text is sitting at 50% as well. So we actually, so the main thing we did here is we took this picture and cut out the box part. So we kind of like put a cookie cutter over the top of it to basically kind of cut just that, just show just this much of the picture. Here we could do border radius, so we could make the borders kind of, we could make it kind of rounded corners. Here's border radius 100%. Okay, so again, kind of going back to this, the border radius, where is that at? Right here. So border radius is 100%. What if I made that 50%? Let's make it 50% and see what that does to the picture. Come back over here, do a resize, and notice that, yep, it basically rounded the corners a little bit. So that border radius is what basically makes that a circle. Okay. Okay. Now another thing we do is this thing called image masking. So we've got this picture right here. This is what the picture looks like. So let me back out of here and actually show you. So this is what the picture looks like. Okay, we're actually put this picture on a website. But if I do this, if I actually open up the website, you'll notice that this top part has basically kind of been removed. Well, how can that be? So if I do a right click and save image as, that's the image. It's the actual image that we were talking about. Going back over here, so it's actually this image. So how's that working? So what we do is this, is we've taken this picture into Photoshop and we've actually cut it out, and we have just this black image. So we've cut it out so that it's all black, and then what we do is we add a black border to the top of this. Now notice that this background is transparent, so now it's masked. We've made sure that it is transparent. So we've actually got two pictures. We're going to have this picture that has this black image like this, and this other image like this that's full image. So if we take a look at them, so here's our one image. This is the PNG that's transparent on the top, black on the bottom. This picture then is going to sit on top of that. And so what happens is this top part that is transparent is going to bleed through the other picture. We're telling it to basically take wherever it's black, leave the picture alone. Wherever it's transparent, cut that out of the other picture. And so how do we do that? Well, again, if we take a look at the so here's the actual code. So we've got some styles up here. So here's our image and here's our mask image. So it basically says WebKit mask box image URL. So here is the actual image we're going to mask it with. So this is the guy that does all of the work for us. So what does our style sheet look like? Our style sheet has it's more for the header, the body, header, image, float left. We got some padding on it, and we've got this div role. So again, the style sheet's not doing much. What's really doing all the work is this guy right here. Okay, so it's saying take this and mask it over the top of the other one, and whatever is basically missing, make sure that's missing out of the other picture. Okay, so again. That's basically what that then looks like. It's a pretty cool effect. It really does a great job. So as opposed to modifying this picture, why not use masking to basically get rid of the portions that we don't want? And we can do that by bringing in so bring in this picture, and let me expand it out. Let me zoom in. And so what I can do is I can use my, now it's going to be a lot different the way they talk about in the book for Photoshop. So we're going to have to do this a little different. So here's what we do. So I'm going to grab my lasso tool, use my polygon. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to come over for a straight line to that guy's shirt. I click. And I'm going to come up his shirt, come over here. I do have a video out there, a link to a YouTube video on masking in Pixlr. I highly suggest that you read. Again, I'm really trying to hurry up here so it's not going to go as smooth as I would like it to. So I've got that selected. So caught a put overhead, but no big deal. So you kind of get the effect. So what I want to do now is do a right click and duplicate the layer. So I've got the layer duplicated. I want to uncheck this lock box. I don't want that locked anymore. And what I'm going to then do is click on up here on my copy. I'm going to click this mask tool. Okay, so now it's showing up. So now when I uncheck this guy, notice what it just did is it basically took all that out at the top. Okay. And now what I can do with this top copy is I can come up here to my adjustments. I can click brightness contrast. I can drag it all the way to the left and make that black. Okay. And then I'm going to basically remove this layer, just delete it altogether. And I'm going to click File, Save as a PNG, because I want to keep that transparent. And I'm going to call this 2 because I don't want to actually change the other one. We click OK. So there's my PNG there. So I click that. I'll make that number 2. Okay, so now when I come over here, I now have my copy and their copy. So I'm going to rename this one to 3, and I'm going to remove the 2 on this one. Whoop. So mine is now the mask, and when I double click on it, look what it did. Now you notice it cut part of her head off because that's what I did by accident, but you can see how that works. So now my mask is sitting on there and it says whatever's transparent, remove from this picture. So really neat effect. It's a really cool effect and it works very, very well. Another thing we could do is we can use transparency. We use PNGs and transparency. So what we do is I want to have this circle, yellow circle, and a blue circle with a C and an S in there. And let's just take a look at the code. So if I come into the CS overlay, if I double click on it, it comes up and there it is. So I do a right click, I'm going to go ahead and view the page source. And as you can see, we've got a style sheet, and that's the big player here. So here I've got my well, let's just take a look at the style sheet too. So so here's what I've got. I've got a div class letter C, and then I've got a div class content. So I come here, here's my dot letter C, so a dot means it's a class, and it's got a width, a height, border, blah, blah, blah. Right here it's got opacity, 0.5. That's 50% transparency is what that means. We've also got this other filter, which also puts an opacity on there as well as far as the color as well. My letter S, I've got some different colors going on there. And then for my content, so now I've got my content. So since it's inside of this class, it says this div must be inside of that div. And there I basically tell it where I want it to basically reside, what the top and left margins are, so on and so forth. So this opacity is really, so again, if I made that 1.0 and saved it, now I've got one block on top of the other. Well, it's not the effect we're looking for. I really want this to be transparent. So again, I change this back to 0.5. Save it, and again, when I refresh it, now I have 50% transparency. So kind of a really cool effect there as well. And again, it really works. I think it really works best with PNGs. Or is that right? No, not PNGs. Hold on. Yeah, well, PNGs are the only images that allow transparency, except for GIFs. So another thing we do, let's notice we got some shadowing down here. I want to add some shadow. So what I can do there is kind of hard to see, but we got a nice shadow down there. And how that works is I do a right click, view page source. Again, identical page here. Okay, nothing different. The big difference is our style sheet. So I open up the style sheet and notice there I now have a border color and a background color. And what that does, and again it's got this text shadow, so we've got the shadow there, and we got the background color and the foreground color, and we got the shadow, which tells it how big it is. So again, if I increase this up to, let's say, a 5, and I refresh, notice that the shadow is a lot bigger. Okay, so we can actually change the shadow size. So that's a big thing there. So the text shadowing is the big player in that particular case. Now another thing we can do is add what's called 3D shadow. And basically we got the box shadow 0020 black, and what that will do is, I'm sorry, let's just take a look at the code. I was looking at the wrong picture there. Nice big box shadows there. If we look at the code, I don't think the code has changed at all. Yeah, same code. We look at the style sheet, and that's where all of it basically comes into play. So now what we've got is we've got text shadow, there it is, and then we basically change all these pixels, very complex on what basically goes where on both of those. Okay, each one of these is the red, blue, green, the different colors there, and basically how wide the pixels are, and so on and so forth. Really super complex. So you can kind of play around with that and see what kind of images and things you can get. And we're talking about the edging here. So that's really what's going on there, is it's just taking this text shadowing and adding other shadowing on there, so it kind of gives it that 3D effect. Notice how it's lighter here and darker there, and so it's more or less just changing colors to give that 3D effect. So if we use it on the space helmet guy, we can use a box shadow there as well. I don't have to have that code. So there we've got the nice box shadow. Again, if we look at this page source, here we've got the box shadow. So this is the guy that basically does that. And as you can see, we do have the opacity is set to 1, but the opacity here is set to 0A, and that's for the figure caption. What does that look like? Yeah, so that's not as bright as the other ones. It's a little bit transparent. It's 20% transparent. Yeah. So one last thing we can do is use this box shadow to add some color to it. So what we've done is we've added the box shadow, and then we've added some other lines to it, which basically adds all of these different colors. So again, we're using the RGBA coloring system, and these tell it where to position each one of those colors at. Okay. And if we change the border radius to 100%, we basically get the nice round circle. Okay, so if we get rid of that border radius 100%, it's a square. If we add it, it turns into a circle, and we get the same exact effect. Yep, just like that. And if we wanted to have the nebulous behind it, we could do that as well. Again, we look at the code. So there's our image with the box shadow, and then all of the different colors and where they want those colors to appear. And that is about it. Okay, so that's it for Chapter 8. We'll see you next time.